Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the City Council Study Session, February 13th, 2017. It is 5:30. We'll start with roll call.
Deputy Mayor Wales.
Here.
Councilmember Baggett.
Here.
Councilmember DeCoursey.
Here.
Councilmember Holman.
Here.
Councilmember Pelosa.
Here.
Councilmember Trout-Manuel. Here. Councilmember Wagner.
Here.
Do we have any additions or corrections to our agenda?
Deputy Mayor, we have an additional item, downtown permit parking lots for about 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. In lieu of announcements, I don't think that it hurts to announce again that it is Councilmember Baggett's birthday. It is his 51st, and we want to thank you for sharing with us. And now we will move into agenda item A, the 2016 NPDES Annual Report and 2017 Stormwater Management Program Plan. And Kevin has it scheduled for 10 minutes.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor, Chris Thorne and Tim Carlisle with our Engineering Services Division will be presenting this evening.
Great, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening. My name is Chris Thorne. I'm with the City of Auburn Utilities, as Director Schneider commented. And with me is Tim Carlaw, who will be assisting if there's any questions that come up during or after the presentation. So tonight we are here to talk about our 2016 annual report and our 2017 Stormwater Management Program Plan. And these are requirements of our National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System municipal stormwater permit, which is a federal requirement that is managed by the state, and the city has been issued a stormwater management or a permit to discharge stormwater to waters of the state, and that includes surface waters and groundwaters. Requirements under this under the permit include having a stormwater management plan or program, which includes many elements, everything from public education and outreach to controlling runoff from new construction, stormwater requirements for our maintenance and operations, modeling and assessment, and looking for illicit discharges and removing those from our stormwater system. And this is a 5-year permit, again, issued by the state to the City of Auburn. So just to cover quickly some of our highlights from 2016, there's certainly a lot of detail in the annual report document that we submit to the state, but just want to cover a few of the things. The biggest task that we did finished last year was our requirement to make low impact development the primary mode of stormwater management. And so to do that, we had to update code, we had to update our enforceable documents, and we had to adopt a manual that was equivalent to the state of Washington's 2012 Stormwater Management Manual, which is what we actually ended up adopting and then creating a supplement to go along with that for the City of Auburn. And so that wrapped up a multi-year process to get all of that done on time by the end of last year. And did a very good job of doing that. Other highlights of last year was our public education and outreach program was very busy. We used ECOS, which is the Environmental Coalition of South Seattle, once again to go out to businesses in Auburn with their spill kit program. Last year they went to 50 businesses and talked to them about pollution prevention, how to clean up spills, how to prevent spills, more importantly. One large benefit of using their program is that they can speak to people who English is not their first primary language. And so of the businesses they went to, 18% of them spoke English as a second language. So that's very beneficial to us. We continued our natural yard care workshop program, and that was up on the Lee Hill area this year. We had 61 unique households that participated in that program. It's very well received. Our environmental services folks were busy with having people volunteer, and so they had approximately 75 people help out at the Auburn Environmental Park with plantings, removing invasive species, and other maintenance out there. And then we also put a number of articles in the Auburn Magazine regarding low-impact development was one where we had kind of a multi-part series. We also covered pet waste and other things stormwater related.
Chris, do you want us to hold our questions to the end, or can we interrupt you? What works best for you?
It would be best if you held till the end, I think,
Okay,
but.
great. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Our storm drainage inventory folks were busy. They covered approximately 15% of the city this year, or last year. And our maintenance folks were very busy. They cleaned out 20 of our stormwater detention and treatment facilities, and that would be a major overhaul, cleaning out all of the sediment that has accumulated over the years. For 2017, getting into our stormwater management program plan, one element that we have to do by our permit is inspect all of our catch basins by August 31st of next year. So we've been working on this for the last 4 years, and so this year we will have a push to finish that up. We are now in the process of implementing the low impact development requirements that we adopted last year. So there's going to be training still for staff, for the public, for the developers that are coming in with proposals now, to make sure that they understand that and can implement it properly. We'll continue with the public education and outreach programs that I discussed earlier, continue with stewardship stuff and our asset inventory. And one thing we're starting up now is working on the new stormwater permit that is coming out. So we will be participating with other municipalities to make sure that we're involved in that. Tim has reminded me that I forgot to continue our slides. So anyway, stormwater 2017 plans. And then finally, tonight is kind of the kickoff of our public comment period on our stormwater management program plan. We will be advertising that starting tomorrow. On the 6th, we will be back for a public hearing here at a council meeting, and then on the 20th, return for adoption of a resolution that allows us to, approve the stormwater management plan and attach it to the annual report to submit to ecology by the end of March. So with that, questions?
Hey, Councilmember Troutman.
Yes, I did have a question. You mentioned that up at Lee Hill, 50 homes took part of this. What did they do? What were some of the things that they did?
It's a 3-night series with 6 speakers. They cover everything from building healthy soil in your yard, reducing your use and dependence on pesticides and herbicides. They talk about planting, using right plants for the environment in your yard, how to properly water, how to properly maintain your plants. And this is very beneficial to us because it's encouraging people to use less pesticides, less herbicides, fertilizers, which, if they're improperly applied, can end up being washed off the yard into the streams. A lot of the program is geared towards health, because if this is put on people's yards, children playing in it, pets playing in it, can track it back into people's houses. So there's multiple benefits, not only for stormwater, for our water supply, and also for our solid waste.
Then another question. You say you have 15% that you clean the sewerage and stuff. Up at where I live, by Muckleshoot on Dogwood, when it rains, it always forms a huge lake. And I'm not sure who cleans out that gutter or, you know, who we have to call because it's always flooded.
Our maintenance and operations people would handle that. So
Okay.
They would be the appropriate people to call.
Or we'd be happy if
Yeah.
you have an intersection or location, it's something that we either look at the cleaning, or if it rises to making it onto our R&R program, annual program for some sort of a,
Okay,
Structural repair.
Is the first entry that you go into Muckleshoot on the side of Dogwood, when it always rains, I'm saying, there's a lake. You have to go onto the other side to be able to drive because you'll be driving right through this lake.
But you're saying that all we need to do is send you an email with the address and you'll
That would work.
investigate for us. Okay, great. Councilmember Wagner.
Has the Auburn Environmental Park turned out to be an advantage for stormwater management or no advantage or a disadvantage? What's happened? We had a lot
I
of
don't know if
experience
we
with
could
it.
really quantify that. I don't think it has been a disadvantage, just because of the natural processes that occur there. Stormwater treatment in a natural manner occurring.
Do we get to count that as part of our treatment?
No. I don't believe
Right, it wasn't an advantage like we hoped it might be, but at least it's not a disadvantage. I got another question.
Please.
We promoted pervious pavement here as a way to manage stormwater in what we thought was a good way, and not put it in the pipes and put it out where cars could grip on it. But I'm told, but we know that pervious pavement clogs up over time unless you clean it. I'm told that Department of Ecology tells us we can't use a pressure washer because we wash too many hydrocarbons down into the soil below. Is that true? And what can we do about it?
That's what we hear, is you're actually forcing some of that material down into the pores, further degrading it over time. There's a lot of discussion going on with maintenance of LID facilities in general, and so that's one item that we're monitoring closely. More frequent lifting of the material out through cleaning, not necessarily sweeping, but the vacuum sweepers without the brushes, just more frequent to try to get those out. And part of our inventory is to identify these areas where we have them so that we can look at doing more tailored maintenance as we're able to develop that maintenance program as LID becomes more prevalent in the city.
No, we're looking at putting that on part of the walkway up 272nd, is some of that. And one of the concerns I have is we have that up there by the circle, up on, I think, 304th.
4th and
Okay,
124th.
and it is, if you're out walking, summer or winter, it's slimy and it's slick. So I hope that when you come up with some ideas on how we're going to keep this stuff clean, we'll be able to apply it to some of these other areas that people use as walkways.
Agreed, and
Yeah.
we did test a driving a device that sucks up and cleans, and it's pressure, but it's sucking up, it's drawing with a high vacuum. And we tested that up on a portion of that sidewalk, made 2 passes up and back, and it essentially got rid of it.
Oh, that's
So
good.
the industry's starting to catch up to
Okay.
the mandate, but there's extra cost associated with that equipment, staff time to operate it, et cetera. But that's a byproduct of where we're required to go.
Thank you. Councilmember DeCoursey.
I think we've touched on this before, but how well is our outreach working with residents in the city to have them clear, clean out the obstructions in their storm drainage by their homes? It seems like every once in a while you drive around and we do see some of the intermediate flooding going on when the storm drains aren't cleared or as clean as they should be.
I'm not sure that we can quantify that. I know we put out the message every fall to remove leaves and things like that. Whether it is actually happening out there, I'm not sure. You know, I still see in our asset management program, people's calling in and saying my catch basin's, you know, plugged and that sort of stuff, and we go out and we maintain that. Whether they have tried to clean it themselves and weren't able to, or just see a puddle and call the city, I don't know.
Or maybe they're not able to
Yeah.
physically, we don't know.
Councilmember Pelosi and then Councilmember Wagner.
Page 11 of 249. Item 15B for boy. Can you, number of hotline calls, only 9, but can you give me a couple examples of those hotline calls?
Well, a hotline call is people, where I can document that somebody actually called our maintenance and operations number, which is our hotline, and made a report. So typically that is a citizen call where they are calling in saying there's a spill, or my neighbor's doing something, or there's, you know, like a bucket on the side of the road. Most of our calls really come in from our staff, and we've asked them to call maintenance and operations, and a lot of them do, but a lot of them just, instead of calling the main line at maintenance and operations, they'll call the storm supervisor, who then calls us directly, or they'll just, you know, they know our phone number and they'll call us directly. So those I would not call a hotline call.
Okay, same page, item 19. Number of illicit discharge. Give us some examples of what you guys have found.
Most of the time it is spills from automobile accidents.
Okay.
So, and typically we get those cleaned up off the street when done. We also include things like discharges from construction sites that are, you know, discharging turbid water off of the site. So we will record those as an illicit discharge. We found very few that are actual, like, piped connections or anything.
Okay. One more?
Yeah.
Page 13. Item 29 at the top. Can you give us some examples of enforcement actions?
Normally, the enforcement action is the inspector saying, take care of this problem right here, and they say, okay, and it gets taken care of. So it's a silt fence that is not installed properly, and water or dirt sediment is leaving the site, material that's been tracked out onto the road that needs to be swept up, ponds, or the erosion control hasn't been installed quickly enough, so erosion is starting to leave the site because they got caught off guard and it started raining before they had completed their erosion control.
Yes.
Page 15, middle of the page, 49B for boy, catch basins. My God, almost 10,000 catch basins within the city.
Yes.
Holy smokes. That is a huge number. And you inspected almost 2,800, and you cleaned out 614 with the vac, right?
Yeah.
Vac machine.
Ditch dog?
I have a catch basin in my in the public right-of-way in front, and it drains directly into the Green River because I'm up on Lee Hill there. And I'll give you a quick story. So one summer, there was a duck out there by the catch basin, just raising all kinds of heck. So out comes a little duck, a duckling. Then another duckling, and then another one. And then my wife went out and looked in. He says, "You've got to lift that grate off." And those things weigh, you know, they're heavy.
Yeah, they are.
So all in all, she had 12 little ducklings. So I was down there scooping them out. So the mom took them across the street to the neighbor underneath their patio. And I don't know whatever happened to them after that.
But
I wondered
you
where
know,
you got
from
the
a
feather for your hat.
stormwater point of view of violations, I want to know if you put the grate back on.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good, okay. Now, Rich has been patiently waiting for his question, please.
When I saw you hired 2 GIS people, I thought, wow, that's a lot. But then you think about 10,000 catch basins and all those things. But when we do GIS now, we can not only give location, we can give a lot of background information behind
Absolutely.
it. Are you doing that so that we know kind of
Yes.
how each of these operates?
Yes,
That's
there's a
great.
whole array of information that goes with each of the structures.
That's a great investment in GIS, those people that concentrate on this.
Councilmember Trout Manuel?
You have several different areas where it says not applicable. So are we going to get that information later on? Or are you waiting on some material or information
Well,
on those?
There are certain things like question 47 on page 15, which asks if we were using a reduced inspection frequency and to report additional, or to provide additional documentation. Well, we are not using a reduced inspection frequency, so there is not any documentation to attach. So typically, I mean, there's a few, I think, that were not applicable this year. So like our requirement to inspect all of our catch basins by the end of
February 2nd.
August, yeah, next year. If there was a question asking whether we had done that, it would be not applicable now. It will be applicable in the next annual report.
Councilmember Baggett, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, quick question. What methods are you using to get the outreach out to the communities so that we can get them trained on what to put down there? I know personally I've observed in my neighborhood several people dumping things down into those storm drains. And I've talked to them about it, and they just shrugged it off. So what kind of an outreach program do you have?
We try a variety of things. I mean, from our Natural Yard Care program, it is brought up there. Water Festival, which is a program where we bring 4th and 5th grade kids up to Green River Community College and teach them classes over a day. They would get that kind of information there presented through a class.
Do we use the social media at all?
We don't really, no. But we put articles in the Auburn Magazine that might touch on it, and that would include even things put out by our solid waste department. So we try to do as many different things as we can. We're involved in the Puget Sound Starts Here program, which is a regional stormwater effort where they do advertising on buses. You may have seen advertising on television, radio spots. That uses social media and does it in a way that is regional over the entire Puget Sound basin. So I think it has a much bigger impact than what we could do perhaps out of Auburn. So what we try to do is direct people to that effort.
We do have targeted mailings if we find problem areas, so we'll target an area and
I've
actually.
seen your truck up there in our neighborhood occasionally with, sucking the stuff out of the storm drains. But, maybe where there are HOAs and things of that nature, maybe you could employ some of those, because they have newsletters, they have other kinds of ways of broadcasting that. And I found that really works really well.
Okay.
So that's just a thought.
I cut you off, Councilmember.
You mentioned that this is the hotline telephone number.
Yes.
How many people know that? This is the first time I've seen it.
It's hard to say. I mean, it's posted, if you look on our website, on the storm page, I think we put it out on postcards. So like if we have a area where somebody has been reported dumping, or we found evidence that things have been dumped, then we will target like a neighborhood with postcards, and it says right on there, if you see something being dumped, call this number. And I'm sure that there are other avenues that we've used in the past to get the information
Just
out.
like Mr. Baggett was saying, if you've used our Channel 21 to post that,
Mhm.
that would be kind of nice because a lot of people do see that.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, we get a lot of calls that don't necessarily come through that. I mean, that's one thing nice about being a small city is, I mean, people might call the mayor's office. They might call a director because they've talked to him at a neighborhood meeting. They might talk to a staff person that they've dealt with a traffic issue and say, you know, I've got this problem, and then that comes straight to us, and it might not necessarily go through the hotline.
member.
We get the reports.
Councilmember Pelosi and then Councilmember Wagner.
So do we use Channel 21 or?
Do we?
Yeah.
We have.
Okay.
We've used it for Puget Sound Starts Here messaging, and I believe some others that I can't think of off the top of my head.
You know, another point, when we go out on our national night out, you know, sometimes we get some handouts, but this, to me, would be a good one. Good.
Councilmember Wagner.
Does the Muckleshoot tribe have a water quality person like you that focuses on that?
Not that I'm aware of. They
You
have
might want to,
issues.
contact their public works department and begin to talk to them a little more about water quality. They now own the headwaters of the White River, and so a lot of stuff that's gonna come down here where we hope to put some of our stuff in, they may have ideas about how it ought to look, and my guess is they have somebody who knows about it, it just may be that they just aren't working on it, so
Mhm.
Eddie Chu, I think, is
Yeah.
you should probably contact with
Yeah.
that.
I know that they have fisheries people, I'm sure they have river people, I don't know if they have storm drainage people, but.
Rivers and storm drainage are a great area.
Well, Chris and Tim, I want to thank you.
Can I make one follow, I want to make one
Yes.
follow-up.
Are you
point,
going to
please.
talk about the Save Our Fish that are stamped in front of the storm drains?
No. I could, though.
Okay, please do, because I don't see enough of them, and I think that that's a subtle reminder.
We're actually looking at acquiring some of the buttons that would glue down.
Yeah.
That first came about with our, since we're gonna have these new LED features, to try to direct some attention towards those and not a big broadcasty sign kind of a way. So we're looking at doing that, and you're right.
I knew it.
So I want to follow up on the catch basin cleaning. So you noted 10,000 catch basins. That's a fluid number as we're doing more of the inventory, and it's not going to go down, and regrettably. And so we've had 4 years to clean, to inspect and clean the catch basins for this go-round. This next permit is taking it, that we're under now, is taking it down to 2 years. So it's gonna be a doubling of workforce in effect to cover that. So I just wanna, that's one of the largest impacts of the permit that we see. So I just wanted to bring that to the council's
Is that to deal
attention.
with flooding, or is that to deal with water quality, or both?
Water quality.
Water quality, you suck the sediment up. If there's a defect in the structure, broken lid, whatnot, you know, that doesn't really affect it, but that's part of the inspection process. And we have 6 months after it's been cataloged, if you will, to do the cleaning or the repair. So we have a 6-month lag in between the inspection and then actual, you noted, the truck in the neighborhood and sucking out. So that's a really large undertaking.
Councilmember Wagner.
All of this, keeping track of our wetlands and our stormwater started with Jimmy Carter signing an executive order. Our new president has threatened to reverse all that. I just hope that we keep on top of what the feds say versus the state says, because the first time around, we sued the state saying you can't add all these new things the feds didn't ask for. Well, it sounds like the feds are gonna go down again, and we still may have to go back to the state and say, wait a minute, you know, is this really what we ought to be doing? So and it's a policy issue for us, you know,
Yeah.
do we want to join a lawsuit to sue the state again and lose again, probably? But I'm concerned about executive orders around this area. Jimmy Carter started it, President Trump can end it.
Councilmember Pelosi.
It seems to me that the 2-year window is unreasonable. And how long has that been out? That we're going to start that in 2018? And when will we begin that?
We begin that after August 1st of next year.
So did we
Or
have
this year, excuse
did
me.
we have an opportunity to respond to that? I'm sure that something came out for review, right?
Yes,
And did we respond negatively?
that I do not know. But I just as a reminder, we're beginning the process now of looking at what the next permit will be. And fortunately, I think the permits will get tighter and tighter unless, as Councilman Wagner pointed out, there's a reversal at the federal level. But part of it is there are phase 1 permittees, which are larger municipalities than Auburn and counties. They've got one permit, and then the phase 2s have a separate permit. Gradually, those permits are kind of coming together. So things that we are going to be required to do, phase 1s typically are doing now.
Well, it's almost like an unfunded mandate by our superior government. Well, we should fight that.
We did, and we lost in court.
I'm going to try again to thank you both.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We're now going to move on to item B, ordinance number 6636, and I hope we have our Director of Finance, Shelley.
Good evening. This ordinance that is before you and will come forward at the next council meeting is for the credit against the state sales tax. It's not a new tax, it's a credit against the portion that the state collects. And it's part of this design that we did downtown here where we had the stormwater, the utility infrastructure improvements. And we levy this to pay debt service for local revitalization funding that was a bond that was issued in 2010. This is the 8th year that we've asked for this funding, and it's a copay on the debt and on the debt service, and it goes for 25 years through 2035. And this needs to be passed every year, and it's due to the state by March 1st. And there's a report that goes with it that talks about the number of jobs that have been created in the area and the sales tax collected, things like that. So we do have that report if anyone's interested in seeing that. Are there any questions?
Oh, Councilmember Wagner.
What percentage of the debt service is paid by this sales tax credit as compared to the other things you listed, like REIT 2 and interest and the grants?
It's
Just a rough one.
okay. It's the debt service runs annually between 450, I think 500,000, and it's supposed to be dollar for dollar for the state, the dollar for the city. But we can match with federal grants, and we had the Economic Development Authority grant that helped, and we use that as a match. So it's about, I think this year the match is about 39,000, and REIT is 150,000, whatever the difference is between 250 and 39,000.
A little over half is paid for by this sales tax.
Half, yes. But we're matching with the developer.
Okay, maybe, Shelley, we could move on to Resolution 5278.
Okay, and this one again is a resolution that the city must have into the state by March 1st in order to levy a 0.1% sales tax, again, against the state sales tax. The state collects 6.5% of every dollar. And this is for the Lee Hill annexation area that the city annexed back in 2007, 2008. And it sunsets, it's 10 years, and it will sunset next year in June of 2018. We will get 9 months of sales tax next year because there's a 2-month delay. And it'll be through June 30th, and we'll get that June sales tax in July, end of August. So the city received in 2016 about 1.9 million sales tax from the sales tax credit. We're anticipating to get about 2 million this year, and in 2018, about 1.2 million.
Councilmember Pelosi.
So, this is not related to the rates or anything, the fees, the tax credit.
No.
But do we have any new annexations coming forward in the city?
Not that I'm aware of.
And,
There-
Do you want Dan, Councilmember?
Oh, Ken's coming.
They wear their hair differently.
I'm okay with that. So, Councilmember, in response to your question, the city has several potential annexation areas remaining. We have a larger one of approximately 100 acres on the south end of the city within Pierce County. So it's a Pierce County future annexation area. And then we also have 2 smaller annexation areas that are completely surrounded by Auburn in both the southeast quadrant of our city and the northwest quadrant of our city. Those are areas that are within King County. A third one, and you may remember this, we did a briefing in 2016 on annexation areas. We also have the area that is currently within the city limits of the city of Kent, often referred to as Bridges or Verdania, up in the Lee Hill area, that ultimately would come into the city after the development of that area has taken place. So none of those areas are planned immediately in the near future for any annexation efforts, and obviously, were that to occur, we would come and work with City Council to get the appropriate concurrences and authorizations to do so.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Thank you very much, Shelley.
You're welcome.
It always helps when you remind us that we've kind of done this for a number of years, and this is just renewing things that we've done in the past.
It's kind of like deja vu.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now going to look at item D, which is with Kevin and Jeff, ordinance number 6638.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. For the record, Jeff Tate, Assistant Director of Community Development Services. Ordinance 6638 is a recommendation from the Planning Commission to make a map designation change in the downtown area. I'll take just a minute to describe what that map designation change is and what it means. Within the downtown urban design standards, there are pedestrian street designations. And in your packet, you should have the Planning Commission staff report, which includes a number of exhibits that were forwarded to the Planning Commission that shows the pictures and the maps that we're speaking of. But pedestrian street designations, really what they do is they define the types of ground floor commercial uses that are allowed. There's pedestrian 1 and there's pedestrian 2. Pedestrian 1 designations are limited, have a smaller list of allowed uses for ground floor commercial uses. Retail, restaurant, personal services like hair salons and day salons, things of that nature. Pedestrian 2 allows those uses, but it also allows office and residential to be located on ground floor spaces that are facing the designated streets. Not every street in downtown has a pedestrian 1 or pedestrian 2 designations. They really run along Main Street, Division Street, and then a few of the other streets that intersect Main Street. Ordinance 6638 was originated through a application process. So the owner of the property where the older Key Bank building is located, the white brick or the white stones, submitted an application. It's zoning amendment application ZAA 16-0006. He submitted that application in November, and staff began to process that application and bring it forward to the Planning Commission because it is a legislative action. The Downtown Urban Design Standards are a separate document from City Code, but the City Code points you to the Downtown Urban Design Standards. So there's a section of City Code 1829070 that says that by reference, the Downtown Urban Design Standards are an extension of City Code. Therefore, when they're modified or proposed to be modified, that's why it's a legislative process and goes through Planning Commission and comes before City Council. Planning Commission did hold a public hearing last week on Tuesday, February 8th, and made a recommendation to City Council to approve the map change. And the map change is modifying just the frontage along Auburn Avenue, really the area that's right across from Auburn Avenue Theater. So the west side of Auburn Avenue for the extent of that piece of property, that frontage property. So to change from pedestrian 1 to pedestrian 2 designation, which allows the owner the ability to start considering office space in addition to just the restaurant, retail, personal service type uses. Staff didn't have any real heartburn over it because the pedestrian designations are really about the pedestrian experience downtown. And as you move off of Main Street, the pedestrian experience changes. So as you move north along Auburn Avenue, it feels one way on where you have Nelson's Jewelry and Auburn Avenue Theater, but across the street you start getting to the medical uses and multi-care hospital. So staff didn't feel that there was any inconsistency with the adopted downtown plans and policies. And staff made the recommendation of Planning Commission to approve and forward the map amendment to City Council. So along with it, there is a condition in the Planning Commission staff report to establish for the owner a timeline for redevelopment or rehabilitation of the property. And we did work with the property owner to try to develop a timeline and some wording that work for both parties, because I think everybody desires to see something happen there rather than it remain a vacant building. So I think that about sums it up. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Does that mean that they're going to maybe get rid of that white brick?
I don't know. There are options. There are rehabilitation or redevelopment options.
Councilmember Holman.
I have no questions of Jeff. It's just that his building has laid fallow now for many years because it can't meet the retail requirements that we've imposed upon it. So allowing it to be built up as office space or medical arts space is a wonderful repurposing of that building. And we do have a shortage in Auburn of good office space. So this meets a whole lot of needs of our city, and I'd certainly thank the Planning Commission for their work on this.
Councilmember Pelosi.
Second, you're, I'm kidding you, John. No, I agree.
Second, no.
Well, you'd almost think that it was Pelosi's birthday.
I
It's
agree.
not.
I
It's the
agree
duck
with
story
your,
that got him going.
Your comments.
Yeah, it's just,
More office space and more usage. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a-
yeah.
It's an elephant
it
right
can
now.
become an
It's
attraction.
a white elephant, so more ways than one, it's a white elephant.
So you said there was a timeline. What's the timeline?
So, if,
Excuse me, Bill.
I'll point you to page 153 to 49.
Okay.
And there's, at the bottom of that page, there's a section titled Conclusion. So that's really the introductory paragraph. You really have to flip to page 154. And there's a second paragraph that starts laying out some timelines for submittal of a strategy, submittal of building permit applications to go in one of the two directions of rehab or redevelopment, and then just the general development, the construction work itself.
A pretty tight schedule.
Yeah, very.
Well, I'm excited too. Any other questions for me? Thank you. Really excited. Oh, we can get Okay, let's now move on to item E, Resolution 5270, and Kevin and your staff, please. Oh, thank you, Ingrid.
Yeah, so for the record, Ingrid Galb, Assistant Director of Engineering, City Engineer. So what you have before you tonight is a new agreement with the City of Algona for them to utilize basically our stormwater decant facilities for their sweeper and Vector truck waste, as well as to provide for sweeping to be done by the City of Auburn when needed by the City of Algona. So we previously had an agreement with them that expired at the end of last year. So this is basically a new agreement for a 3-year term with the ability to extend for an additional 3 years by amendment. And it sets out the new rates that have been agreed upon between Auburn and Algona for doing that work.
Well, we recently increased the size or whatever of our decanting facility.
We did.
So that will be nice and helpful if we end up providing the service. Councilmember Pelosi.
Could you give us the expired costs? What from,
What were the previous
yeah,
costs?
please.
Okay, so I'm pretending to be Randy tonight, just so you guys all know.
I didn't hear.
I'm pretending to be Randy tonight, just so you guys all know, because he's off at a conference. So I don't know that I have those specific dollars that are there, but the new rates that are on under Section 4 of the agreement, cost for services, those are increased rates over the previous years. The $30 monthly base fee basically covers our quarterly billing to Algona.
That's increased?
That's, I don't think that's increased by much. The $75 for the per ton for waste material, that has increased because we are expecting that Waste Management will increase our costs that they charge us up to $70 per ton. And then the additional $5 is basically our cost for handling the material and for the record keeping that's necessary for this contract.
And then the sweeping?
For the sweeping, so that's based on our hourly rates for the equipment per standard FEMA schedule, as well as our standard hourly rate for staff, which comes to that $126 per hour.
Is that an increased rate?
That is an increased rate, as those increase periodically. But we only do about 18 hours a year for Algona for sweeping, so it's not a significant dollar amount.
You know, it's one of the concerns I've had is what I see occasionally is a lack of sweeping on Main Street. Is there any way you could provide us with an idea of when our services, do we do it in spring, or do we do it whenever? Because I still see tons of leaves and stuff. Or do we wait until clean sweep? And what are we doing about the waste on Main Street?
So I'm going to also put on Randy's hat. If Randy was here, he would tell you a couple things. We do have a comprehensive street sweeping schedule that is actually available online. But if the council would be interested in having a presentation by Randy at a near date to talk about our schedule and our program, we can certainly put that together. But there is information available online for the benefit of council and for the audience. So and it is something that we do citywide street sweeping. So But again, if that's something the council will be interested in at some point.
So
Bill, could we maybe put that under one of the municipal services reports?
Sure.
Because I would be interested in seeing what the schedule looks like. But Ingrid, you wanted to say something
Yeah, if I can
first.
just add one thing. So they do have a schedule for how frequently they go out and sweep those streets. The one point that I'd like to make, if there's parking on that street, whether or not they can sweep the entire street correctly up against the gutter line depends upon whether people are parked there or not. So if they're parked, they
That's a
go around
good
them.
point, because the way I look at Main Street, when it has those things that come out like that, I don't know how they sweep it even when there are no cars there. So I would be interested, we'll find out more when we do our committee report on,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and where the bulbs come out, we actually do the radius on those to accommodate the street sweeper to actually get in there and do that.
Councilmember Wagner and then Councilmember Pelosi.
When we do that review of the schedule, I'd like a review of the policies on the business owners sweeping their own sidewalks and what they do with what they sweep. Does it all go in the gutter? Do they have to pick up the McDonald's things? I'd like some review of that policy as well as what the schedule is for
Yeah.
going around and sweeping whatever they swept into the gutter.
So just so I'm clear, Councilmember, I want to make sure I'm understanding. So we have an issue around, or a conversation around the street sweeping, and then you're on sidewalks where we may have items that ultimately end up in the street. You'd like to understand the city policies on that?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure I was clear. And I think Mayor Backus just turned around and showed on her iPad the website. We'll send you a link to this, so you don't have to search for it tomorrow. But
Okay,
there is a
great.
comprehensive
And
map
if you could
scheduled.
put it on the agenda for municipal services to talk about the policies and everything else, because it's an issue that I'm seeing a lot of now. We've got them flying overhead now. First Pelosi, then we have Yolanda, then Bob, and then John.
I have a real good solution in between the regular sweeping schedule, and that is we could have IT, oh, there he is, Mr. IT himself. But, you know, YourGov,
Drones.
all of us should be using YourGov. And all you do is take a snapshot, send it in there, and it goes into M&O.
We have the updated app.
Oh, it's
Yeah, we
updated.
have the other.
Yeah, so it's not your gov as much, we're
Oh.
encouraging the mobile Auburn app.
The A, right? Yeah. Well, I've used YourGov a couple times, and I used the other one, and I had a problem with it, and I've gotten with IT since then. But I used YourGov last week on two things. Within 24 hours, bang, taken care of.
And if I could, I'd really like to echo what Councilmember Pelosi said, because by submitting through our mobile app for either council members or citizens, it does two things. One, it goes into our cartograph work order system, which is then a very efficient way for us to deploy work effort. But the other thing is also helps us to track performance. So I would definitely second what the council member said in terms of deploying and using that, because it's to our benefit.
They get on it right off.
Councilmember Trout.
And talking about that, does the city take care of the area where, up over by the outlet, where McDonald's, and there's a pond, and it's all chain link? Who takes care of that? Because there was a lot of trash around there, and then you've got another business over on the other side, so I mentioned it to Mr. Pelosi, and he says, take a picture and send it in, but I didn't.
So I would need to know exactly which pond we're, because there's some larger ponds that are back, not next to McDonald's, but further back down the road. Those are our ponds. If it's within where McDonald's is itself, that is most likely a private pond.
Yeah, it's between McDonald's and the other businesses
Yeah.
next to it.
So that's gonna be a private pond situation, so that would still be something that you can let my staff know about, and we can go out. That's part of our inspection process for private storm drainage facilities, if it's actually acting as a storm drainage facility.
Okay, we're gonna kind of get back on track, and we're gonna go back to Bob, and we're gonna talk about decanting and sweeping for Algona. Bob.
Talking about Algona again, I noticed in the background summary on page 178, the last sentence, it says Algona also agrees to participate in long-term decant facility improvements. Could you amplify that a little bit?
Sure. So what this is because they are using our facility, if we look in the future at needing to increase the size of it, we just recently increased the size, but as we continue to go forward, the amount of material that we're going to need to decant is most likely going to continue to increase as opposed to reduce. So we wanted to have something in there that if they're going to use our facility, that they participate in the cost to enlarge the facility in order to continue using the facility after we do
And
that.
that'll just be on an as-required basis, right?
Yeah, and the way the language reads is basically we make the decision as to whether or not we want to do an increase to the decant facility, and then they need to make a decision as to whether they want to partner with us on that. If they don't, then the city would be sizing that facility for the city's purposes only and not necessarily for Algona's.
Good. Thank you.
John, I keep skipping over you. Did you have a point or a comment about 5 people ago?
Not germane to the question of decanting, but to your question of when downtown Duck Zone,
Yeah.
daily, East and West Main Street Thursdays.
Oh, wow.
So,
Thank
just
you.
off of the
Great.
webpage.
No, thank you. Wow. Thank you. Councilmember DeCoursey.
Thank you. So Ingrid, how did we size the upgrade to the DCAT facility? And looking at future potential population growth, do you have any projections as to what may be required as we go forward?
So the increase to the decant facility basically doubled the size of that existing facility, and that's because we were basically outgrowing the old facility. So we did look at how much material were we bringing in daily, weekly that needs to be processed, how long does it take to process that material, and tried to size around that as well as some growth to that. The problem that you have is that growth, when you're talking about debris in the roadway, is hard to estimate. So inevitably, at some point in the future, we're going to have to look at that again, but we have a little bit of growth in that existing facility today.
Well, we've kind of made it around the circle. Any other questions for Ingrid?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to move on, and Dan, if you could join us, please, on the council rules. And are you going to help lead the way with this topic? Bill, this has to do, or is this the one on our committee meetings?
This actually includes the travel plus the hybrid.
Okay, good.
I don't know if you want me to
Please.
jump in, but what
Yep.
I will describe some things, and then as it generates conversation. One of the things that I did, because we were now sharing the chairing or presiding responsibilities a little more widely, throughout here, I tried to be consistent, and I made presiding officer a small p and a small o, just to make it a little more, it's generic, it's not talking about anybody else, even though there are times when it refers to the mayor or the deputy mayor or the chair of the particular special focus area. But there are times also when I tried to make, when it made sense to try to identify those titles specifically. Just to give you an example, on page 4, it said presiding officer, and in that case, it's the mayor. But we also have the deputy mayor defined as the person who takes that responsibility in the absence of the mayor. So I tried to make that a little more clear, although throughout this document, there is that common thread of making presiding officer a little bit more generic. What I tried to do in connection with the hybrid study session is to identify really starting toward the end, the identification of those special focus areas and the identification of the responsibilities of the city council committees. And if you look at, for instance, starting on page 20, but moving on to page 21 and 22, the responsibilities or the division between the study session part and the special focus areas is identified. The tasks that I plugged into that were consistent with the discussion that had previously been had. regarding the divisions of those things, of those different special focus areas. And, I divided tried to keep it consistent with that information. Matter of fact, the PowerPoint that you used in your discussion was the map that I used to try to make sure that I didn't leave anything out that needed to go into your procedures. Not everything needs to go into your procedures, but those things that were at least consistent with your procedures, I wanted to make sure were not forgotten.
Yes, Councilmember Pelosi.
Can we ask questions of you, Dan, as you go through?
Absolutely.
Okay, page 211, or pardon me, page 20 of the rules and procedures.
Okay.
On the left-hand side, bottom, page number 20. And I'm looking at 16.1. I'm not used to seeing the term general business focus and special focus areas. I'm used to seeing committees, the name of the committee. But since you did it that way, or the committee did it that way, I guess, did the committee set those names? Did the committees set those names?
We set the special focus areas, but general business focus, I think had a little different term, kind of meant the same thing.
Yeah, but it's just different topic. It was topical, way to divide the
I
topics.
think we said general topics or something.
Mm-hmm.
It said special focus areas.
So that would have been then the former committee, like Public Work Committee?
The special focus area would be.
Special focus areas like the committee.
Okay, so here's my point, Dan. In 16.1, we should describe what general business focus is and what special focus areas are in that paragraph.
Well, and I think, or at least I tried to do so in the paragraph that is 16.1A. It starts on page 21.
Divides it up pretty clearly, I think.
I want to put a page break before A, so it goes with all the other stuff.
I can make sure that that's done. I will tell you, sometimes it changes when you
When the strike-throughs
accept
are-
the revisions too.
I guess what got me was in 16.1, Dan, fourth line above, covers study sessions shall be less formal than regular council meetings and shall give blah, 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 gives a description.
And just so that you know, what I tried to do is the special focus areas occur at study sessions. They're still study sessions. In fact, that was one of the things that came out of the ad hoc committee, that they would still be study sessions, but they would be broken down into different parts. And the general business focus, or the activity that would be of a general nature, would be handled before moving on to the special focus area, where attention would be given to the specific areas that are assigned for that particular calendar. And then below that, I tried to describe those as we divided them out in that PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you.
And where did you address public comment at any of these meetings?
I added no public comment to the study session, which currently does not provide it. I could add that specifically, but right now it just provides that public comment is only available at the regular meetings, not at study sessions.
Where is that?
Well, that's in the, earlier on in the agenda, in the description of the city council meetings. And that part of it was modified a little bit, but it wasn't changed. The regular studies,
Page 5.
yeah, the
Bottom of page 5, top of page 6.
Right, and that was unchanged in terms of that, and I didn't add it in as a negative to the study session because it wasn't added in as a negative earlier.
Well, I think we need to make it clearer.
We could do so.
Clearer, because, we had that problem with the study session last time where somebody thought they were gonna be able to speak and they aren't.
So, back on page 5. H, audience participation. Now, is that for study sessions or?
No, that is for
Council meeting only.
council meetings only.
Okay.
So could we, just like Mr. Wagner said, could we have something to say that on our study sessions?
In
So that
section
way
16?
we don't ever have that confusion again?
Well, of course, I don't know that anybody here was confused, but it would be clearer if we plugged it in if you wanted.
Yeah.
Yes.
It wasn't us that were confused. It
No,
was
that's what I meant to say. You weren't
the
confused,
audience.
but it may be helpful for the audience to know that clearly there is no public comment period, not only by not having it in the agenda, but also by some specific statement.
Well, I don't think it hurts to have it publicized, even though then even if we have to make historical reference to it in a situation, because it doesn't look like we're being.
It's an easy change.
Yes, Councilmember.
Before we put it in, could you ever envision a time when you would invite someone from the public to come and make a presentation at a study session? If you had, for instance,
I did at the last meeting,
an
remember?
expert
Yep, we did at the
come
last meeting.
and you say, I want you
Yes.
to speak to us and teach us what you're the expert in, say some renowned jurist or environmental specialist. If we say there will be no public presentations at study sessions, we might limit our ability to have an invited person to that
Could I-
study session.
Yes.
Just so that we don't do something we don't need to do, the audience participation is where they're in control of
Yes.
the direction. The city council can receive, as you do a lot of times from Sound Transit or King County or somebody else, you can have topics presented to you as a topic presentation, not a.
Yeah, I just don't want to limit ourselves if we find that necessary for our own edification.
And I don't think they always are planned ahead. It may be just somebody from the audience that you see there and say, can you come up and talk to us? But it should be at the chair's request. But so that's something like that in there that says the chair can request audience participation, but audience participation is not allowed otherwise.
Yeah, because we had that affordable housing lady come and speak, and we didn't know she was going to be here, and she is an expert, and it really worked well.
But could I maybe make a statement, but it's really a question. Is this what you'd like? Something where you say the chair could request an individual to make a presentation to the city council, rather than the chair could open the meeting to audience participation, which would be quite different.
We want the second one, do we?
Okay, I will, then that can easily add that.
Claude, jump in.
I think we need to limit it to, if we ask for audience participation, it should be related to a specific topic on the study session agenda. Because without that, we could have people coming up and offering opinions or whatever on unrelated topics.
Well, but that's inconsistent with what I was hearing. I think that we weren't going to have audience participation.
I'm just saying, an audience presentation. So if we
Well,
have
it'd be at the chair's request. Does that work?
Right.
That would work.
Yeah, but limited to the agenda, topics on the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Pelosi.
Page 22, item 3. It appears that an attorney wrote that. Now that, to me, is really a mouthful, what we're trying to do here.
What page are you on, 22?
Yeah, the left-hand corner of the document. Just seems to me that you could say that in fewer words.
Well, I could.
Like, as an example, okay? You start out, topics for special area consideration, then you've got that parentheses. I don't think you need that parentheses as an example. You could delete that, because you go right into topics for the special focus area consideration shall be determined by the chair of each focus. So I think you can delete it. I don't think it has any substance to what we're gonna clarify.
Maybe not, but the reason I put it in there was to make sure that it was clear that this topic for special would be in the special focus area of the study session.
Well, but you're saying that right at the get-go. Topics for special focus area consideration shall be determined. You don't have to tell me it's gonna be included.
Okay. I can take that out.
It's gonna, less words, more understanding.
Well, just so that you know, the only reason I plugged it in there, not that it needs to be in there, was because special focus area consideration is consideration, and where you place it is perhaps different. But if it's not needed, it can be taken out.
You could even say special focus area topics shall be determined. I mean,
Deal.
Right.
Leave it alone.
Huh?
I think it sounds good.
Well, let the majority speaks, but I mean, I absolutely.
Councilmember Wagner.
I want to be as, as clear as we can be while still having some wiggle room of how to actually do this business. And it seems like if we eliminate the parentheses, we have a little more wiggle room.
Okay. For an engineer, you probably need it. All right.
So is the consensus to remove the parenthetical part?
Sounds like the consensus is leave it.
Okay.
I know when I'm defeated.
Okay, I have some
Don't rub it in.
questions.
I don't want to middle.
And first of all, I'd like to look at page 20. 15.6. Here, no individual council member can direct the mayor to do anything unless there's a majority, but if you end up getting a majority, then you end up with that issue where we're talking to each other to figure out, if we want something, and I don't understand 15.6.
Well, the only thing that I'll say is that the majority could be the product of discussion at a meeting or a study session. It does not mean that this is part of the meeting or this is part of a non-meeting. It could be, for instance, if 5 of you approached the mayor and said, could we get this done? Then that might be something you would want to formalize perhaps, but it would also be something where the mayor would know that there is a majority in favor of it. I too don't want us to create what could be construed as a serial meeting or a problem, but this doesn't say that that is the only way that this could occur. This says, the mayor can, no individual council member, but a majority of council members can direct certain things to be done. And that's actually the collective policy role that the council has.
Okay, well, is that true with the study sessions, which are items and supposed to be totally under the control of the council members?
15 is actually not, Title 15 is not study sessions, it's general.
Okay, So then let's move on to the study sessions. Let's move on to page 23. I see that I just want some discussion. I don't necessarily agree or disagree, but should we be putting in there 3-hour maximum time frame goal, maximum 5 agenda items, when you can see what we had tonight was like 10 time frame per agenda items? I guess we could have special study sessions. I don't know if we need that specificity.
Yeah, I kind of go along with that. When I read that, I'm thinking, holy cow, pretty soon we're gonna have potty breaks put in there.
This
Not a bad idea.
Just so that you know, this was part of the ad hoc committee's recommendation. I didn't.
Yeah, I
Try
can
not
see
to
that because
change
you don't
that.
have it changed and it's not underlined, but,
None are required. So, I'd like to strike 3, 4, and 5.
I'm okay with that.
I'm good with that.
That'll work.
Okay.
Quick comment on that, that's okay.
yes, please, I'm sorry, Clyde.
Full disagreement with that, but I think we need to have some level of timeframes. I need to keep us on track. We could wind up with, like this would happen, wind up with 20 agenda items and be at 11 o'clock at night, because there's nothing that limits us in this. I think putting something in here that gives us some framework of an objective, whether it be time or something related to that, is probably something we should look at. Perhaps the time frame number 5 is saying, perhaps we should maybe not have that, so we can not limit the agenda item, but for the overall, I think we need to kind of limit ourselves.
I would hope that that's who you would have your deputy mayor do, or the person who is, running the meeting would kind of say, okay, we've been here 8 hours, what about us moving these items forward or something?
Well, then we go back to filibustering. It's just.
Oh, okay.
Those kind of things can happen, and I
Okay.
think we need to provide us with some level of, some dimension that we can abide by.
Okay. Councilmember Pelosi.
After being on the council, a few years that I've been on the council, we kind of govern our own time. I mean, we know when we've had enough, and so, but putting it in writing, I think that's too much control.
We know and we can control because of the body we currently are as a legislative body. But this document isn't for us, this document is for councils. And, the councils go forward in the future. Again, and I'm just putting this out there, let's say, for example, we do have an individual council member who decides to impose some level of, I want the floor for 5 hours and you can't take it away from me. I think we just need some level of assurance, whatever that might be, that we have a certain limitation on time.
Take it back to the committee.
I don't think we need to do that. I think we can discuss it right here.
I
That
think
might
we-
get us into 3 hours, though.
Well, I really have been one of the people that have been opposed to us sitting here for 6 hours. I'm not opposed to spending 2 hours on a topic like we were gonna do on human services. I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem with us spending an inordinate amount of time here in an evening where we're all getting tired. So maybe we should just put down, leave the items alone, because sometimes we might have 1 or we might have 10. Leave the 30 minutes, delete it, but say that we have an optimal time frame, optimal time frame of about 3 to 4 hours, and leave it at that, with a potty break.
Here's your range, so.
Yeah, that gives us some flexibility and an understanding, that we only have to do. Now, we start at 5:30, that would be 9:30, and we've gone as long as 9:30, but we've had breaks, but does that seem reasonable if we put in 3 to 4 hours?
That'd be keeping item 3, but putting in
Yes.
3 to 4 hours?
Yeah, a goal of 3 to 4 hour time frame. Put goal in the front, it's a little happier for me.
The goal is at the end, but we can put it
I
in the
want
front.
it in the front, please. Because it makes it understand it's kind of flexible. If we can get it wrapped up in 4.5 hours, we're gonna do it. Does that work for everyone?
Works for me.
With a potty break.
Listen,
We don't need it.
I'll work on that part.
Chair's
Yeah, let's add
prerogative.
an item. Let's add one.
May I inquire, just to make sure I'm understanding, were you also talking about keeping the maximum of 5 agenda items as a goal?
No,
Striking
No.
4? And then striking 5 as well, the 30 to 40 minutes?
correct.
So what we'll do is 4 and 5 will disappear, but 3 will be changed.
Okay. And what we need to do is we need to work together. We're nice that whoever prepares our agendas for us, they put the time there. We all have to kind of, maintain that. And we've all been really good about that. Some we go 20 minutes over, but then on the next ones, so we're all striving towards the same thing. Yes.
I'm very pleased to see that we have removed the time limit that we were imposing upon ourselves for debate and discussion. I think that's healthy.
Yeah. It's because nobody followed it. They did what they wanted to. Okay, and let's keep going through the document. Did you have some questions, Bill, about the travel portion?
Well, no, I have a comment on page
Okay.
26. The matrix review, I do not think it should be done by the deputy mayor. If I'm chair of municipal services, and the deputy mayor takes over and does my matrix, that's not healthy. The deputy mayor will not be as knowledgeable as I should be as a chair of that committee. So I should handle my own matrix items, as an example.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So if we could word that.
Well, there's 2 things that would go with this, and one of the things that was plugged in out of the ad hoc committee was that there would only be one matrix.
Yes,
even though-
I agree. There's one matrix.
But it's color coded, so when you get different colors, different people take control.
So the deputy mayor would do all of the matrix items except for the focus group items.
Could I, so that we move through that without having the gavel go back and forth? And I'm only asking, I'm not trying to say that this is the only way it could be done, but could I suggest that perhaps before we move off of the special focus area chairing that part of it, that the chair would then address the matrix for that special focus area before handing the gavel back to the deputy mayor?
Yeah.
Does that work?
Well,
Works for me.
but the matrix has all of the
Yeah.
special focus areas on
Yeah.
it.
Correct.
He knows it, yeah.
I'm trying to fit in with what I'm hearing, and that is that Bill had suggested, for instance, that the chair of the special focus area address the matrix items for the special focus area. And, well, we could always pass the baton, gavel back and forth.
Well,
but-
kind of how I envisioned it, and I talked to Yolanda about this, when we have our first meeting in, what's March? March, and she's going to be looking at human services. I was gonna sit here, and I was gonna have Yolanda sit right here, so that it would be seamless. I would start the study session, then it moves to her group, and it goes to her, and then it comes back to me for closure. And then each time we did one of the ad hoc things, or not ad hocs, but our committees, they would be up here with me so that we could do the swift shift back and forth.
But at every meeting, you have one that's doing most of their special focus area, but the matrix has all of the special focus areas.
Yes.
So what are you gonna do about the other 3 or 4?
Then after, let's take the March example. She starts off and she talks about whatever we're doing under that. And then we would run around the table, do any other updates, and then we would close out the study session.
So you don't have to pass the gavel to go around the table.
Not for an update. Okay?
There's only one chair.
Yeah.
May I suggest, even if it may not be a contentious issue, and I don't think it
Yeah.
needs to be, from a parliamentary standpoint, it's always valuable to have a chair. And so if I'm understanding what you want to accomplish, may I suggest that the chair, even the chair might be asking all of the other council members.
Which chair?
Not the main one, the sub ones. So we
Focus
got
area.
Yolanda doing her thing, and then it's just time for the updates from the other groups. They wouldn't be chairs. At that time, they're chairs of those groups, but they're just giving an update.
Correct. I think maybe we're saying the same thing. I'm
Okay.
saying that, for instance, using your example, Yolanda chairs the special focus area on human services.
Yeah.
And then the gavel goes back to the deputy mayor, who then asks each of
Yes.
the other council members what they would like to add. But then we only pass that gavel just those 2 times.
Correct.
Maybe the word matrix review should be matrix update.
What page is that on?
That's on page.
Oh, page
26.
26.
At the top.
Well,
I don't know if that would clarify that,
Oh, I always just put in a slash, use them both. Oh, Councilmember Holman.
you know, I think perhaps we're reading too much into this. When the focus area chair is up, Yolanda, she'll cover all the topics that she's prepared for. Then when we get to the matrix, and she'll cover the stuff on her matrix that they're working on. Then when we get to the matrix review, you have one person, and most likely that should be the deputy mayor, who just goes down the
Yeah.
list of talk. Have we covered this sufficiently? Or did Yolanda cover this sufficiently? Yes. Move on. And just go down the line to make sure we haven't had something drop off the list.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
It just, I don't think we need a whole lot of specificity on how to go down a list and whether it's been completed or
Well,
not.
no, but my concern is that the focus chair do their own
Absolutely.
matrix
Yeah.
items.
And when it's, when it's Muni Services up there, you should talk about the items on your matrix list.
My purple list,
Yeah.
or whatever.
What is Muni?
Whatever it is.
Muni Services, golden.
Oh, I don't like that color.
It matches your shirt.
I'd rather have black. That way.
Okay, have we given you enough direction, Dan, to muddle through?
But there's something in here that says that, okay, there's language in here, Dan, that says, and I thought I marked it, but apparently I didn't, I read it, where it says that the deputy mayor will do all of the matrix items, and we want to make sure that's fixed.
That's gone, yeah.
What I'm contemplating doing, if this works with what you want, is on page 25, I'm adding a C, which would still be within the special focus area realm, that the chair of the special focus area shall review any other matters, including items on the matrix that relate to
Yeah.
that topic, and then 8 would still exist.
Yes.
Okay. Next item. Let's look at 16.2. Under 16.2, where am I at? Am I at a city council meeting? Am I at a study session? Or am I in the middle of a special focus area for 16.2 to apply?
Well, I think that the mayor has had the authority in the past to establish ad hoc committees. It may be that the deputy mayor would also, actually, the deputy mayor, this says the deputy mayor would be responsible for appointing members to the ad hoc committee. This is not an area that has been changed, so if it needs to be changed, just be aware that this has not been the subject of any discussion or consideration of any changes by the ad hoc committee.
All I know is it says the first sentence, the mayor or a majority of the city council may establish such ad hoc committees that may be appropriate to consider special items that require special approach or emphasis. So what happened last study session, as deputy mayor, I took the thing regarding inclusion in our cities, and I set up an ad hoc of Claude, Yolanda, and Bob. And I think that it's important that during the study sessions that the deputy mayor have the power to be able to do that if the group will go along with it.
So that first line then should maybe read, the mayor and/or deputy mayor may establish such ad hoc committees. Take the majority of the city council out of there.
Well.
May I suggest,
I would just keep all three.
yeah,
I'd keep all three.
we could put all three.
All right.
All three would be better than taking out the
Yeah.
majority of the city council, because what if a
You know,
majority of the
like,
city council,
Okay.
Put
Sounds
Nancy
good.
and I in a boat, and you might,
Sounds good. That was a heck of a suggestion.
may I, would you be comfortable with me reading the entirety of that section to make sure that there's nothing that is left up in the air
Yeah.
with respect to that? This is a little bit of a different direction, and so,
yeah, because I'm confused on line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The mayor shall appoint council representatives to intergovernment councils, boards, committees, provided that the deputy mayor shall appoint council members, well, you now added the deputy mayor in so that they can appoint to council ad hoc committees. I'm confused.
well, this, again, this was an unchanged portion from the earlier version. This is after the study session agenda, so we're moving on to more general areas. But there are certain regional committees that come to the city that call for the mayor to appoint. If we said something different than that, I don't know if it would be in conflict with some outside agency. But I mean,
If it works, why fix it?
It says the deputy mayor appoints to the ad hoc committees. The mayor, deputy mayor, or majority of the council can establish those committees, and then the deputy mayor appoints them to the ad hoc committee.
May I have a suggestion?
Yes, Councilmember DeCoursey.
So I would say, Dan, that we say the mayor shall appoint council representatives to intergovernmental councils, boards, and committees, period. Remove provided that, and start with capital T, the deputy mayor shall appoint council members to council ad hoc committees. Two separate sentences.
okay. Well, all I really wanted to make sure I did is if I take this and try to make sure by changing it up above, we don't create an inconsistency. If I just want to make sure that we don't do something that creates,
And I think we're, the mayor, the deputy mayor, and/or a majority of the council can establish such ad hoc committees. But the appointment of committee members is the responsibility of the deputy mayor for ad hoc committees.
right, and we're saying the same thing, I'm sure. I just
Well,
wanna make sure that-
I'm not really sure, because we've got that other item coming up on committees. And in our packet, it's got all these committees. So are we saying that all of those committees should be appointed by the mayor?
No, those are not ad hoc committees.
No, we're talking about, but these are governmental ones. And should all governmental committees be appointed by the mayor?
Yes, yes. My opinion, yes.
Okay, then I don't have a problem with that.
I also did want to make sure that we recognize that this does include the ad hoc committee on travel changes.
Yeah, and I'd like, Deputy,
Where's that at?
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Pelosi.
I'd like to address that. Also, there's that memo that went to Dan Hyde, that's right below it, you guys, behind it, page 225.
Okay.
And 226 and 227. I don't think, Dan, that legal captured all of our thoughts.
I didn't put dollar amounts in.
No, and I'm not concerned about dollar amounts, because it's addressed sufficiently under item B as in boy, on page 31. Page 31, left corner. I think that the item D as in dog, it's, you left out some important information that we had on page 227. The last paragraph, just ahead of the council member account codes that finance will use. That last paragraph, where it begins, from time to time, the deputy mayor will request a report from finance. I'm using the rules and procedure as a procedure of how future council will do their travel. If we don't add some of that specificity in it, we're gonna lose that. We're gonna lose that footprint that should be followed for future councils, unless they change it, you know.
May I inquire, just real, to make sure I'm not missing anything? If we added to either D or maybe in E, the sentence from time to time, the deputy mayor will request a report, would that be the only thing you would be asking? I did try to not include things that would change or that would be subject to.
Yeah, but I think that last paragraph should be plugged in here.
Well, may I suggest, just so that you know why I didn't, is because it includes references to a table or codes which would.
That doesn't have to be in there.
And nor, I believe, should staff will assign codes.
Yeah, that doesn't have to be there.
Okay.
Not just the first sentence, Dan.
That's what I just asked.
The first sentence, and then the sentence, the fourth line from the bottom of that paragraph. Council members shall retain copies of travel receipts for accountability purposes.
Well, but you remember last time we talked about this, I actually asked clarification on that, and I did plug in that this, because that could mean two different things to two different people, that what this was intended to mean, at least that was my question, and the answer I thought I got was that yes, council members shall provide copies of the receipts to the city. This said retain copies rather than pass them in. So then that's why I plugged in paragraph D.
What I was trying to avoid was lost receipts in the system. That has happened.
Well, okay.
And that's why the committee said what we said. Please retain copies of travel for accountability in addition to providing staff with travel receipts. In this way, the council member can rectify inaccountability questions with the deputy mayor who has responsibility for the council member's budget.
Well, please understand, I was only trying to plug in what I thought was the language amplified by the
Well, but
discussion.
We gave you the memorandum.
You did, but that's the reason, but that's the reason I asked the question at the time, and I construed the answer to be, each city council member shall be responsible for providing to the mayor or finance director within X days, and I don't know what that is, of returning to the city travel, any and all travel-related receipts and documentation. So I added to what you said by making sure that it includes not just keeping it, but providing it to the city.
Mayor Backus, did you have a comment?
I do. Are you creating an additional public document by having council members retain copies of their receipts once they've turned them in? I just want to throw that out there.
I would say this, is it would be a public record if it were in two different places, and for instance, after the time for purging one, it might, if it's still kept in your hands, it's still a public document. But really what I was trying to do, and Bill, I was actually thinking that I was trying to do what you were telling me to do, is not just retain them, but turn them into the city. And that's the question I tried to ask. Maybe I didn't do such a good job of that.
You know, one thing we didn't specify is a date. How long should we keep these receipts in hand? Like he was just saying, if we keep it, length of time, it becomes public record, so should we? Immediately. So should we have a date on there? How many days?
Well,
Councilmember DeCoursey.
There's a retention schedule on documentation, so I'm not sure we need to include that in here, but that's a published
There's a document
that we should all be familiar with and make sure we're following.
But what I also added in here, trying to, again, I did try to ask the question, and maybe I didn't do a very good job of communicating that, but that it's not just a retain it, it is a turn it into the city. I did leave a blank for that.
So what do we want to do?
So we want to put something in that blank.
Well, what does finance want? What does finance want?
30 days.
30 days. The state says 20.
What is it?
The BARS manual says 20 days.
2 days. That's reasonable. I get mine in 2 days.
Well,
Councilmember DeCoursey.
Question to Councilman Warner. One statement was that if something gets lost in the system, which potentially could or could not happen, and saying by that way having a council member retain a receipt or a copy of a receipt, provides us an extra level of assurance, you might say, but I'm not sure, do we really need something for any potential receipt that may be lost in the system?
yeah.
When you can do an affidavit, I've seen when we've lost them before, we go to Antoinette, we say, the baggage thing was lost, it was $25. She writes out a little affidavit and we're done.
Yep.
And I've had a situation where I've gone down to PSRC and I don't get a parking receipt. I have to do an affidavit of a parking receipt.
Councilmember Holman.
I'm a little bit concerned where you plugged in the 20 days. Was that in D on page 31?
Yes.
We should not plug in 20 days there. We really need to have that in and submitted within 7 days, 10 days, but
We're only going by what finance
I
recommends.
think there were two different questions there. I'm trying to clarify.
Let's ask her.
Okay.
When do you want the receipts turned in to you? You want us to wait 20 days?
Well, it says for reconciliations, like on an impressed fund or something, it says 20 days to reconcile. However, remember, if it's a procurement card purchase, those are about a 3-week cycle. So we need them in to support the procurement card when it comes. And you just get back and you get them in as soon as you can.
Yeah, 7 days, you know, that's more than,
So what do you want, Director?
Well, I think 10 business days should be sufficient.
Huh, yeah, it's 2 weeks.
then the second thing, if I may continue, we had some, Councilmember Pelosi had some question on the wording for that one paragraph and suggest wording as follows. Council shall receive quarterly reports on travel costs. And just, once a quarter, we're gonna get
Yep.
a quarterly travel report on who spent what. Just- We don't need in the rest of the paragraph, it's just gonna be there. Is that going to be too burdensome, Shelley?
No.
Not with these account codes and stuff, it shouldn't be printed off.
So, let's see, I had another.
Councilmember Pelosi, may I, and I don't mean to interrupt your train of thought, but would I be comfortable with what you're thinking to add a paragraph E that addresses the issue that the deputy mayor may from time to time request reports from finance, or do you want it different?
Not with what John just said, I don't think we need it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the
Well,
time to time.
time could be every 10 years.
So if we just say quarterly, then I don't need to add the from time to time?
No, I don't think, no.
Quarterly's good enough.
No, you don't.
With more than that, we're traveling too much.
I'm happy. I'm happy as long as.
Okay, are we ready to move on to another section? How you holding up, Dan?
I think I'm okay.
Good, good. Any other comments? And so the plan is that, Dan, we will have another rendition of this.
I will try to make, add the things that you've talked about today, and I'll send it out to each of you tomorrow.
Okay, oh, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you very much. We are going to next move on to council involvement in regional, state, and local committees. This is a document that we started like a couple of years ago. We listed every committee that we were aware of, that we were currently participating on, or might be something that we want to participate on in the future, and then it's kind of grown in that some new ones have come up. This was circulated, and then people signed up or stated the ones that they were currently attending. And so it's time for us to kind of look at this and maybe get some closure on this. Or this could be a process that we decide to look at every January. One of the things that I believe we talked about, I have with Nancy, is the concept of figuring out what our goals are and what areas we want to emphasize, and trying to match that up with some of our committee involvement. No, Rich, no. This got moved around to everyone's box, and some boxes might have gotten skipped, and it was taking too long, because you can see we started this quite some time ago, so, yes, Councilmember Pelosi.
I'd like to suggest, why don't you go at the top, and we can get through the thing.
Okay.
That way we're gonna accomplish something.
Okay.
So why don't you say like 23,
Hey.
Public Issues Committee, Holman, and then go on.
Number 1, the chamber luncheons, and we all attend that. Number 2, city and school forum. I think that we all attend that. Number 3, left board, Bob and Yolanda. Number 4, I think I put in there, I added deputy mayor, Yolanda, Nancy, what would you like to see possibly put there?
So that's, that is my call on who attends those meetings. So
Okay.
that's not necessarily council that determines that. Sometimes it's based on whatever the topics are on the agenda.
Okay.
Well, you brought up earlier, Margot, that asking the question, does the mayor determine all of these? And I think she does.
Okay. So then maybe we should give this to the mayor to fill out?
So,
I don't know, and I'm just
I
brainstorming.
think we go through it
Okay?
and look at it. I think this is the mayor said, when it comes to number 4, you know, she would identify council members. I've gone to one of the meetings
Yeah.
before, and I think we all have, but, you know, whatever's on the topic of the agenda, it's at her discretion, so.
So
Should we say,
maybe topic dependent. How would that be?
well, council representative per mayor appointments, or per mayor?
And I think you can fill most of these in because most of these you're on current appointments, so.
And I think the reason why you had us fill this out is that we were interested in serving in some of these committees, is how you put it to me. And that's why I told you I would be interested in doing the regional water quality and also on the Tacoma and Pierce County Board of Health, because I'm on, on the committee and my ad hoc committee. And so these are some of the things that I put my name on, some of them due to what I'm on.
Well, you know,
Yes, Councilmember Pelosi.
to kind of make this into something that we can look at every year.
Yeah.
Say January.
Well,
Then-
yeah, as a review, but
Yeah.
the appointments will have already been made to like SCA and those types of
So
things.
what would be the best month, do you think, Mayor, that we should go over this and then submit it to you for your appointment?
So some of them,
November?
well, they're different timeframes, remember, like NLC could be different than AWC, than SCA. SCA was early this year.
Yeah.
So I don't know that there is a perfect time, and this isn't all of the committees, right? This isn't all of the SCA committees, because when the ad hoc committee first created this, I believe you were going by what Auburn was currently represented on. I mean, we can certainly, in my office, take a stab at putting everybody's current appointment in there if you want to do that, and then maybe we can put a column in there for those who might be interested, and then that can be populated by council. Okay, we can do that.
and maybe a few more lines for ones that we aren't represented on.
Yeah, we can
SCA
add them all.
subcommittees.
Sure, I can add all of the SCA committees, because while Auburn is represented on
Just
a
about
good
all.
number of those, there are still a few that you don't see an Auburn council member or mayor's name next to.
Well, then we could match it up with what we decide as council as our goals.
So probably like February of each year.
Some of these are done
I mean,
in September.
Well, it's a living document, right? If something comes up, just like the AHAB, the Affordable Housing Advisory Board, that came up mid-year. We'll keep this as a living document. Maybe it's something that can be reviewed quarterly or twice a year. just to kind of make sure that interests and everything are still there.
Okay, we're gonna continue on here?
Well,
We got blanks.
That's why I said, if you want, I can take it, my office can take a stab at filling it in with who's currently appointed.
and Rich, will
And
you
then bring
try
it
to
back.
get some of your
Alright.
information to
Okay.
Nancy? Because it didn't get to you.
When I first did this matrix, and it looks like it's still mainly my
Yeah.
original, I had everybody's name in there that I knew at the time.
Yeah.
That was about a year ago, so
Oh,
it's
I know,
changed.
we've been working
And
on
I've
this
still
a
got
while.
that one too.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Everyone feel comfortable with that course of action?
so when could we expect this list out then? Through you,
So it might not be this week, because we're getting ready for the State of the City address, but it'll be soon,
Okay.
next couple of weeks.
All right. That's fair enough.
Okay. We'll probably put it on another study session and see where it goes. Now we're down to item G. Council involvement, oh no, wrong one. H, excuse me, council harassment training, 15 minutes.
Oh, we've got this one too.
Oh, that's the next one, that's after,
Yeah.
that's
After
the permit
harass-
parking.
yeah, I didn't
And
know
then
if
do we have an executive session also?
We would request one.
Yeah, so we've got a little while to go yet. So we will start now with item H, which is the council harassment training. I think we attended that, what, 2 weeks ago? And some issues came up as to what are our procedures as council members if a situation should arise where we feel like we're being harassed. And we shared that with the presenter. I think, Bill, you were there when we shared that. And the presenter shared with us that our course of action was to go to Rob Roscoe, and then from Rob Roscoe to go to the attorney. And so we're not sure if that is the course of action that we're supposed to take, or because then it was shared that this training session was not intended for us, that it was intended for staff department heads. Isn't that what you?
Mainly, I went and I talked to the presenter, and I shared some things with her, and she says, well, this course does not pertain to the legislative body. That we had some issues, that we do the steps, go to our HR, and then go to our attorney, and then we would need to go higher than that, because what they were mainly training was more for the directors and the employees. Also, part of this would also affect us, because we have to be very careful as the legislative body that we don't make comments in front of staff or in front of our directors, because they can go to Rob, but it still doesn't affect us, because we would have to go above our employees and staff that we have here. We would have to go to, I can't remember the place that she told us to go and see first through our state, and then to go above that. And I did share that with Rob. And Rob also told me that mainly this training that we went to was more directed towards the directors and the employees. So at this time, we don't have anyone that we can go to if we have some issues, unless we go above our attorney.
So Dan, could you maybe come and join us and help us figure out this
Maybe
quagmire?
Rob, too.
Rob, too.
Yes, please.
Before we do that, we're going to take a break, okay? Just a 10-minute break. Everybody's getting, whatever. You're going to hang in there, Kevin, for...
Gentlemen of a certain age.
I'm not the one that has